Okay, how can you achieve design success? Well, let's have a look at Twitter. Creativity in 140 characters. What a brilliant idea. Bill Murray's on Twitter. What does he say? Fun idea, don't have kids, hire a babysitter, say the kid is asleep and upstairs and not to be woken. When you return, ask where your child is. That's pretty good. That's a pretty funny idea in 140 characters. So Twitter was floated for 30 billion in 2013, peaked at 40 billion, it's now worth about 10 billion. What went wrong? Well, before I tell you that, I find it interesting that it was worth so much money in the first place. I mean, what if we set up a copying site? What if we had something called Twit, which had creativity in just 70 characters? I'd be happy to float that for, say, 15 billion, half the amount. I guess that's not going to work, but it does show you how crazy these valuations are. So what went wrong with Twitter? It's the Winnebago effect. Most apps, web apps, websites do brilliantly at the beginning because they just do one thing really well. Twitter started to add extra features, got confusing for users, and it became the Winnebago. The Winnebago is a kind of traveling all things to everybody. You can add everything onto it. And we're seeing the Winnebago effect on many web businesses as they mature. Some manage it well, some don't. I think Facebook is now quite bloated, quite messy. I think that Snapchat has managed to keep quite clean and tidy. And Amazon is complex, but in a sense it has a different approach, which is more as a multiple service provider. So they kind of get that to work as well. But watch out. Do one thing simply and brilliantly, and you'll avoid the Winnebago effect. There were 7 deadly wins to making successful apps. I came up with these after a number of years of looking at what was out there in the market, what had been successful, and my own work. You don't have to get all of them into your web app, but getting a bunch of them in is certainly pretty helpful. I think geolocation is key. That is what makes the use of the mobile different to the use of the desktop. Social media growing like crazy. There's more messaging going through social media now than emails, which is unbelievable. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So this comes back to that point of just doing one thing well. Cross-platform, you don't want to lose any of those users. Well, you might not get the old BlackBerry user or perhaps the old Microsoft Windows Mobile user, but you're going to get 90-odd% of the market. Monetization, think about how you're going to make money. Selling an app or web app is just about the worst way these days to make money. You have to get smarter than that. Make sure that your web app is global and that it's scalable. It might work well for 5 users, but what if you've got 5 million or 500 million? And finally, don't forget all those clever little sensors on the mobile device. They're often forgotten, but they are absolutely fantastic and they allow you to differentiate your product. Okay, let's look at the tech landscape. Okay, let's look at the tech landscape. For advanced web production, the core design approaches are user-centered design, user experience design, graphical interface design, human-computer interaction, and final one, specialist one, accessible design. The core technologies are cross-platform, use of sensors, geolocation, data analysis and data mining, cloud solutions, social media networks, animation and graphics, predictive monitoring, augmented reality, security, and natural language processing. Bear in mind that pretty much everything happened in just 5 years. Between 2004 and 2009, we went from the what applications to the who applications, the when applications, and the where applications. These, in a sense, are yet to be beaten. We haven't really seen a lot since then. The big arrivals have pretty much consolidated their positions. Okay, let's have a look at enterprise and marketing. What is Mobile-ageddon? Well, a third of UK businesses have still not tailored their websites to work over mobile. Google actually adapted its algorithms in 2015 to prioritize websites that have been optimized for the smartphone screen. This is called Mobile-geddon. What it means is that if you don't have a mobile website or mobile-friendly website, then you're not going to come up so well in Google searches. Incidentally, Google also favors the more secure transfer protocol, HTTPS over HTTP, in searches. So that may influence your thinking about how you set up your website. We're now in marketing talking about the age of the conversation, and this is a big shift from traditional marketing. 40% of chief marketing officers currently don't think they have the right people and resources to meet their goals. With digital tools, customers can be reached when they're at their most receptive. For example, promoting ice cream on hot days. That never used to be possible with billboards and adverts. Capturing web data in real time allows rapid responses by community managers. Marketeers now need to act as brand ambassadors. Consumers are now in charge. Ads and content are blurring. App games, televised chronicles, social media sites, searches. These all promote and bring in customers. A chief marketing officer can now predict what mix of media will achieve company sales and marketing targets. That never used to be possible. It used to be a black art. Measuring how various media affect each other is now important and possible. By 2017, chief marketing officers will be spending more on technology than their chief information officers. So again, another big shift for corporates. 70% of US firms already employ a chief marketing technologist. I guess what we're now saying is the creative side in marketing, the left brain requirements and the right brain requirements, the science side, need to be working well together. Online engagement. Well, what does this mean? You want people to make a noise, you want people to store and share things, you want them to love your website, you want to visit more frequently, you want people to refer to your company and refer it to your friends, you want them to buy into your brand, and you want people to buy your products. That's why you do online engagement. And there's a lot of metrics that you can pull off. These are just a few, and some of them are pretty smart. For example, if somebody prints a page from your website, you can detect that. It's a really big deal these days. For someone to print a page, they must be really interested in something. So log what they print, find out why. It might actually be worth giving them a phone call. If you're a small startup, that's useful information and you could bond with that user. There's a whole load of other ways in which you can measure what's going on with your users. Okay, let's have a look at cross-platform. So these days, I would argue that everything must be cross-platform. Don't choose a platform to design for, you'll be wasting your time. Every platform will eventually support every feature, but until it does, design for the common features. You'll still be able to do almost all of your ideas. Desktops, laptops, smartphones, smartwatches, TVs, tablets, they're just the beginning. Expect a lot more devices, particularly through the Internet of Things. And soon you'll be designing web apps that don't even have a screen. They just talk, the hearables. Later on, your web apps will know how you feel and they'll be able to respond. Here's my daughter, a typical modern user, Gen Z kid I guess. She's got everything going. Mobile phone, tablet, she's watching TV. These are today's consumers and users. You can't expect them to stick with one device, with one app. They're going to be all over the place. You need to plan for that. TV itself has exploded onto multiple devices. This is a company, Fusion, in Canada, that allows you to watch TV on every device. And many broadcasters now allow this. But when we're talking about cross-platform, it can be a whole load of different things. These are some projects that I've been involved in. And you can see from the top left, there's an interactive digital pavilion. The bottom right, you can see an exhibition of wearable computing. And down in the center bottom, you can see a massive computer game show for students that we used to do in Canada. So when we talk about cross-platform and mobile, we have to keep our minds open. There are so many different ways in which your app can now manifest itself for the user. Let's have a look at a few advanced web app examples, just to give you an idea as to what's possible. Here you can see this is a transmedia project, and it's actually for a movie that was being filmed called Boost, which is about people stealing cars, high-performance cars. And the transmedia project there created a gaming app, let you identify cars in the street and log them with leaderboards. It had messaging, it had poster campaigns, and a whole load of ties with the movie. So transmedia, which is basically storytelling across a range of media, is a big digital growth area, and there's a lot of web app activity in there. Here's a project that I did which allowed people in cafes to talk to each other when they're not even present. So we had a virtual cafe, and we were able to project information and messages into people's coffee using pretty simple technology. And here you can see a message in somebody's cappuccino. A nice way of bringing together the digital and the physical. Again, it was done with web apps. Here's an artwork I've designed, which is in Canada, and it predicts your death date from a whole bunch of medical and health information, and creates an artwork that gradually disintegrates 1 pixel for every day of your life. And that particular web app was definitely cross-platform. You can see the web app here working on a variety of devices and scaling to fit. I'm a big fan of the sensors in mobile phones, and I think it's worth bearing in mind that most apps don't use them. So if you do, you're really going to differentiate your products. And the great thing for web apps is that all of that data from many of those sensors is available for you to use. Here's an app one of my students did. Very simple. It's a wake-up app. You can decide what different devices or animations are going to wake up your friends. It could be a chicken that plucks them. When their alarm goes off, there's then a competition to see how quickly they can turn off their alarm and get up. And again, you can have leaderboards, so it's a great competitive, fun web app. Here's another student project. This is a student who has effectively turned a phone into an Internet of Things for a kid's toy. And the other thing to remember is that now with web apps you can do notifications, and you can code them yourself, which is pretty complicated, or you can use a service provider. And there's quite a few that will give you a certain amount of traffic free each month. So have a look at that, because I think once you've got notifications, then you've effectively removed one of the big obstacles for a lot of users in terms of the difference between an app and a web app. And I think one of my favourite web apps is this little text adventure. So a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there used to be text adventure games before we had graphic design working on computers. And you typed in instructions, and it was like a storybook, but it was interactive. Now, that technology still exists, and there's a bunch of people who still create text adventures. The lovely thing about it is that you can create text adventures very simply that work as web apps. And the system that I've used to great effect is something called Inform 7, which is based on an engine going back to the early 80s. So you can have a look at Inform 7. Maybe you want to create your own text adventure. What matters most in mobile? Well, I think this is an interesting question, because for me, we've talked quite a lot about the direction of the technology, where things are going, what you need to be aware of. It may be quite confusing, but to try and distill this down into a couple of really simple, straightforward messages, I put my book, Build Web Apps, through Wordle, which gives you a picture diagram of the most used phrases and words in a document. And this is what we got. So I think what's interesting, if you look at this, is obviously the words mobile and web come up, but look at the other things: intelligence, design, social, people, creative, first launched, coding and technology. So I think this what says to me is that ideas are important, people are important, creativity and design are important. It's not just about coding. And in fact, it's interesting that day rates for freelance front-end designers are slightly higher than they are for people who do the back office coding. Of course, being able to offer both, either as an individual or as a consultancy, is the sweet spot. You can multiply up fees and earnings by doing that. So I think at this point I'm going to say thank you. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.